The guest is attorney Michael McDonald from Tennessee State University, and the topic is Making It in Higher Education, College Life 101, a book that Dr. McDonald has recently published. And of course, Dr. McDonald, let's have you to look at what you consider to be some of the issues that young people generally have to face coming into college. And I would assume that being College Life 101, this would be something that would generally start in the first year or the freshman year in college that you would have to deal with. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Well, you're right, Dr. Haney. The College Life 101 is really based upon making the transition from high school to college, or even for the individual who has been out of high school for some years but attending college for the very first time. The focus was really on what we would call the traditional freshman, the individual who recently graduated from high school and maybe during high school they were involved in many activities. They were kind of at the top of the heap, so to speak, and then all of a sudden 3 months later they find themselves being one of the minnows amongst a sea of thousands of other minnows, and trying to make the transition from being in a setting where maybe a couple hundred students to a setting where there's several thousand, and also the transition from being somewhat interdependent in terms of having parents that you answer to and having curfews and those sorts of things, to going to a point where you're independent and you have to have a certain degree of discipline about yourself in terms of just doing what needs to be done during the day. College Life 101 was written to help young people, especially individuals who embrace Christian principles, to not just survive, but to be conquerors and to be successful on college campuses that are not religious Christian based. A couple of the topics we talk about is the importance of maintaining contact with your parents and family members, and how critical that is.
Do you think that's a real problem on college campuses, back talking to the folks back home about what's going on?
I think to some degree it is. I mean, in my own experience, there was a period of time there where I said, well, I'm okay, but you don't want to wait and make the phone call when everything is wrong. You can just call and say, I love you, thanks for putting me here, because in my situation, it wasn't just my parents who I represented in college. Many people from the community helped me get there, and so it was a sense of them wanting to know that you were okay. Also, we talk about the importance of academic preparation. There's a chapter in there that deals with the first day of school, chapter in there about buying books and things that you should know before you go and actually spend your money. One of the things to suggest is that you attend the class first before you go to the bookstore and buy the books, because there's certain things that you may not need, and money comes at a premium when you're in college. Talk about dating. Talk about domestic violence that does occur on college campuses. People would be surprised to learn that there are, in fact, those sorts of issues on campus. We talk about safety. We talk about security issues. We talk about hygiene issues. We talk about fast food. We talk about the importance of having fellowship and making a connection between your relationship with God and meeting other Christians. Talk about mentoring and the importance of having an upperclassman who can kind of take you under his or her wings and to assist you. Talk about test preparation. We talk about health, healthy lifestyles, healthy living. Talk about fraternities and sororities and organizations, and the importance of keeping them in the proper perspective and waiting probably until you've got your freshman year on your belt before you even consider joining a fraternity or sorority. Talk about being off the college campus and things that you should know in terms of safety, that you don't wear your student ID or don't wear certain things because it gives an indication that you are not really a part of that setting. We talk about the buffer zones between colleges and the neighborhoods that buffer colleges, and the importance of young people understanding that once they step off the college campus, it's a completely different world. We spent some time talking about what happens if you're stopped by the police. How do you handle a traffic stop in the event the police stop you? Things that you need to know. Talk about first aid. We talk about travel. We talk about anything you can think of. We talk about credit card counseling. The importance that a lot of young people, when they first get to campus, the credit card agencies spend a lot of time targeting college people, and they don't know how to handle credit. And so in the book we talk about credit, and being wise in terms of spending, and the importance of staying away from plastic, and the importance of making sure that they have a budget. Time management, we talk about that also.
Okay, and so almost it's just a practical guide in terms, and of course that's how to succeed in college, and etc.
There are over 70 different topics that we talk about in the book. Initially, the book started off somewhere between 380 pages, and and it ended up being 268 pages, and the publishers just suggested we come out with College Life Part 2, or come out with a second volume to take up some other issues.
And it covers that many issues.
Yes,
now, what are some of the health issues that you find when you deal with students on college campuses?
Well, part of it relates, of course, to fast food, and we all
we
talk about that, and talk about the importance of knowing what a report is when you have the health department come out and they give restaurants scores. The importance of knowing, one of the things I suggest is that young people go into a restaurant first and don't go through the drive-through. Get a sense of what the place is like, because one of the things we learn is that you can tell a place and its quality by the restrooms. If the restrooms are clean, then a very good chance that the establishment is also going to be very good. We talk about the importance of young people in terms of just hygiene, things that they can do when they're living in a community environment like a dormitory. Something as basic as, you don't walk around with, in the shower without slippers or flip-flops, something on your feet. That's a clear way to, to develop athlete's foot. There are a lot of things we talk about in terms of washing your hands, and the importance of washing your hand on a daily basis. We might think anything of it, but that is one of the clearest transmissions for young people when it comes to mononucleosis and some of these other diseases or conditions that are unique to college campuses.
Okay. Well, Attorney McDonald, we're getting ready for our second commercial break, and since you've talked about so many things that you've talked about, I think what would be quite interesting in the last segment is to get into some of the research that you had to do in reference to this, because you talk about hygiene, you talk about this, and et cetera, and et cetera. All of those are just a whole widespread span of kinds of places you have to go to in order to get the kind of information that you want to compact into that book. And of course, when we come back, we want to give you an opportunity to talk about your research efforts in terms of bringing that book from where you started to a final product. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.